Hello everyone, I'm delighted to welcome you all for today's webinar in Risk and Management Portfolio. My name is Alba Kecha, the Account Manager for Risk Management in PECB and the organizer of this webinar as well. Today's webinar will be on aligning ISO 21500 and PRINCE2, which will be presented by Orlando, an enterprise architect and program director with over 15 years experience in the field of computing and information technology consulting. Effective governance of project management ensures that an organization's project portfolio is aligned to the organization objectives, is delivered effectively, and is sustainable. To find out much more and ask your questions regarding aligning of ISO 21500 and PRINCE2, today's webinar will cover the following. Why ISO 21500 is important, what is PRINCE2 and the new Agile version of it, what are the advantages and value of each of the above, and how do they complement each other. Before Orlando begins his presentation, I would also like to ask the audience to please write down any questions you may have during the webinar in the chat box on your control panel, and we will respond to a few of them at the end and answer to the remaining through email. Thank you for your attention and enjoy this session. Orlando, you may begin.
All right, so good day, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. My name is Orlando, and I will be taking you through this webinar. I've got quite a bit of slides in here, so I'm going to try to make it a bit quick, just so that we can get through it on time. So I've also tried to do a combination of things here, which was more difficult in execution than I actually estimated or thought about. So I tried to compare 21500 and PRINCE2 and 21500 in itself. ISO 21500 is what I call PMBOK. So I also had to bring in PMBOK, and yeah, I tried to marry the three of them together adequately. The only part that I didn't get to do was the Agile component, which I will add to it, and when we put this on the web, it will be in there. So I'm going to go through PRINCE2 extensively, because a lot of people don't know what PRINCE2 is. It depends on what part of the world you're from. Of course, if you're from the UK or from Europe, it's possible that you're actually more familiar with PRINCE2 than with PMBOK. But if you're from North America and the US, you're probably more familiar with PMBOK and possibly ISO 21500 in comparison to PRINCE2. So I'm just going to try to deal with both of them accordingly as it is. All right? So I'll jump straight into it. So I've asked a question here. I said, what do you have to offer, and what is contained in the extensive body of knowledge called PRINCE2, and what is complementary that 21500 brings to an organization? Okay, so PRINCE2, as I said, originated out of the UK. A lot of people use it. A lot of people in Europe have adopted the PRINCE2 methodology. The latest version of it was done in 2009, and it's a 327-page document that describes the methodology in itself. So PRINCE2 is one of the methodologies for doing project management, while ISO 21500 is the standard, the ISO standard that basically can be used to govern project management. So PRINCE2 has got a lot of advantages. It's very clean. It's very precise in approach. It's very methodical in terms of how it's been done and how it's been. It also focuses on what we call management products versus the specialist products. So the management products, which are the templates and how you actually manage the project is different from the specialist products, which are otherwise are all deliverables from the project in itself. Okay, so of course, for most organizations, the challenge is always the comparison between the project that you're doing and your business as usual and the project that you're about to embark upon. So for a lot of organizations, they struggle because the project is almost like a disruption to their ordinary lives. So it's how do you actually balance and optimize both the existing business as usual, your operations, and projects. So we're looking at process, operational optimization and project optimization. So this is an issue for a lot of organizations as of today. So PRINCE2's got its own definition of a project. It's called a temporary organization created for the purpose of delivering one or more business products according to an agreed business case. PRINCE2 is very pedantic and very particular when it comes to business case. Okay, so it talks about the business case a lot. Project management in itself, and he also talks about planning, delegating, monitoring, control of all aspects of the project, and the mitigation of those involved. So that the project objectives with performance targets of all this time, cost, all that achieved as it is. So the key words when it comes to the book is planning, delegating, monitoring, and control of all aspects of the project. So there are a couple of things that the PRINCE2 guide as publicized in terms of what makes a project different from business as usual. Okay, so it talks about change. It talks about it being temporary. Most projects need to be cross-functional. That means you need to work with different people for the different parts of the business. It needs to be unique, right? So it's usually unique by time. And there's always a level of risk and uncertainty that is attached to projects. So this is very important with regards to projects. It's important to note there are specific things that make a project unique. And these are the 5 things that PRINCE2 talks about. Okay? So what do project managers do? Project managers, they plan, they delegate, they monitor, and they control. Those are the 4 things that project managers do according to PRINCE2. They plan, they delegate, they monitor, and they control. PRINCE2 also talks about the role of senior management. And what does senior management do? Senior management is accountable, they provide unified direction, they ensure delegation is done, they facilitate the communication across the entire business and the integration. Then they support the project manager, and they obviously commit resources to the project. So it's important that you note that the senior management commitment, senior management working effectively on the project is extremely important. Okay, so what are the benefits of PRINCE2? It can be applied to any type of project. It provides a common vocabulary and approach, industry-specific models. It is product-focused, so PRINCE2 focuses on 2 types of product. The management products, which are the templates that you basically use in managing the project, and the specialist products that you deliver on the project. Other people call this deliverables, but it basically calls it product, right? It talks about management by exception. That means that you should focus on the things that are going wrong or that might go wrong, specifically that are a deviation from the plan, rather than trying to report on everything. So the assumption is that the project manager is good enough to manage everything. So we don't expect more than 15 or 20% of a project to go wrong, and that is one of the things that he does from an exception perspective. He also focuses on the continuing viability of the project. This is one of the key. Advantages of PRINCE2. It looks at the project, the business case, and its continuing viability as it is. Also, it looks at specific roles and responsibilities, and there are loads of accredited organizations that can provide expert support and training for it. So these are the things the benefits of PRINCE2 as a methodology. All right. There's some specific principles with regards to PRINCE2 that people need to know, and these are the 7 specific principles. Continued business justification, learn from experience. It's got agreed roles and responsibilities, management by stages. There are 4 stages that it talks about. So it's important to note that a project is meant to be delivered to the organization. So these are the principles on which the methodology in itself is built around, and it's important for anybody who's going to be looking at this methodology to be aware of these principles. Business case, organization, quality, plans, risk, change, and progress. I'm going to get to the point where I'm going to.
Mr. Orlando, we're having some problems with hearing you. Could you please check your internet connection and your audio connection, because we're losing you.
Okay, that's fine. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So as I said, it's got 7 processes. I hope, am I better now? All right. 7 processes: starting up a project, directing a project, initiating a project, managing the stage boundary, controlling the stage, managing product delivery, and closing the project. These are the 7 processes that PRINCE2 talks about, and it manages the projects based on the combination of stages and these 7 processes. Within these 7 processes, there are 40 activities that are in there, and there are 26 management products that are created within these 7 processes. All right, so these are the stages. There's the pre-project stage, there's the initiation stage, there's the final delivery stage, and there's the post-project stage. Those are the 4 management stages, and then there's X number of technical stages. Depends on the project, depends on the organization that you're talking about, that it helps to determine the technical stages as it is. The slides will be made available, so everybody can download the slides and they can refer to them subsequent to this particular webinar. Okay. Then he also looks at management from 4 perspectives. So if you do it, you can look at it either top down or bottom up. So top down talks about corporate direction, management, and delivery. While looking at it the other way, which is bottom up, starts from delivery to management to direction and to corporate. So these are the 4 levels of management with regards to PRINCE2. And it talks about, there's a diagram that talks about how corporate interacts with the project board, and how the project board is made up of the senior user, the executive, and the senior supplier, and how they interact with the project manager and the team manager and the team members. And it looks at all the assurance rules and the change authority and the project support. So these are the 7 management rules that exist inside of PRINCE2. Okay, and the 40 activities that I did mention. So you can see that the 40 activities that are here, they are broken down under the 7 different processes. So each of the processes has got X number of activities that are within it. So these are the activities that are carried out within each of these processes. And this is one of the things that makes PRINCE2 extremely good, because it does look at this in detail. I also did mention that 26 management products are created within those 7 processes. So these are the 26 management products. So broken down the 3 categories: baseline, records, and reports. So they're broken down under this, and each of these are templates. They're documents that are created so that this is done adequately as it is. Okay. Then, because there's a conversation around the project interest, which is the business, the user, and the supplier, and all 3 of them interact together as core interests within the project. Okay, there's some techniques that are described here. So if you look at ISO 21500, it makes an assumption that anybody looking at it will have an understanding of some of these investment appraisal techniques. There are about 7 of them that I've identified here. Then there are also what we call the estimation techniques under plans. There's also an assumption that all these estimation techniques, that people who do planning are familiar with them, and various tools for planning address a lot of this. Then there's a lot of reference to risk management, and risk management is also referenced under ISO 21500. It's also referenced a lot under PMBOK, which is the project management body of knowledge. So here it talks about some risk identification techniques, some risk estimation techniques, and some risk evaluation techniques. So there are 3 categories that are put in there: identification, estimation, and evaluation. So a risk cause can lead to a risk event, and can obviously this can affect a specific objective in an organization. Okay, so people who manage projects are meant to be very much aware of everything that is risk related and how they affect objectives. Okay, there's a lot of conversation around tolerances, and tolerances are just permitted or permissible deviation. So the tolerances of time, of cost, of scope, of risk, of quality, and of benefits, and how you can permit a level of deviation without going to the board. But once you've gone past the permitted level of deviation, you've got to refer to the board before you can go ahead. So also, it makes a clear difference between what is an output, what is an outcome, and what is the benefit, right? And there are 4 stages to developing a business case: develop, verify, maintain, and to confirm. Then, of course, there's a huge conversation around stakeholders. In ISO 21500, there's also a lot of conversation around who are the stakeholders, what are they meant to do, who gains and loses from the project, who supports the project, and how do we do the categorization of the stakeholders themselves. Then again, under risk, it talks about a risk can either be a threat or an opportunity. And if it's a threat, there are 6 different responses, and if it's an opportunity, there are 4 different responses. So this is it's critical to know and to understand this, even though most risks are actually 90% of them are usually threats, and only 10 or 20% of them are opportunities. So the risk management procedure contains 5 steps: identify, assess, plan, implement, and communicate. So it's very important that you understand the risk management procedure and how this works. All right, so change is a critical part of this, where it talks about change control and how to get an approval for change within the project, whether it's change to the scope, whether it's change to the configuration of the product in itself. Change is an essential element of a project, so it gives recommendations with regards to how you capture the change request, how do you examine it, how do you propose what needs to be done to address the issue, how do you decide on the next steps, and how do you implement the change. Okay, there's a great conversation around quality, so you also find a huge amount of conversation in ISO 21500 on quality. So where it talks about quality control, quality assurance, and how the entire quality thing works through an audit trail. So this is also very important. Then it talks about plans, the corporate plan, the project plan, the stage plan, the team plans, and the exception plan. Then the PRINCE2 approach to plans gives you 6 steps for that, and then it talks about product-based planning, which is different from the work breakdown structure, which is what ISO 21500 and PMBOK talks about. So PRINCE2 looks at it from a product breakdown structure rather than from a work breakdown structure. Okay, so that is one of the reasons why we decided to pick this topic for this webinar, because a lot of people who use PRINCE2 do not understand that they already have the ingredients that they can use to achieve ISO 21500, and that you can draw a parallel between ISO 21500 and PRINCE2. All right. 3 types of issues, right? Request for change, off specification, or a problem or a concern. All these are what we call the issues register. And as I already mentioned, there's something called the product-based planning, which is different from the work breakdown structure, right? So, and I'm putting a couple of keywords in here. The final part on this PRINCE2 side talks about the environment, where you can either be embedding it within an organization or tailoring a specific project along these lines. So those are the key things to know from PRINCE2. But if you look at the next slide, where I'm going to be talking about ISO 21500 and the PMBOK, there's a lot of alignment. And whether an organization has embarked upon PRINCE2 on PMBOK, there's a huge possibility they can meet their requirements for ISO 21500 using PRINCE2. So a lot of the documents that they need to do, there is an alignment in there. Okay. So let me quickly go through. So ISO 21500 and PMBOK. So the entire ISO 21500 is based on the project management body of knowledge. Okay, and there's a lot of alignments between these two, the standard and the project management body of knowledge. In fact, most people say the standard in itself is a subset or is completely derived from PMBOK, the project management body of knowledge. So there's a definition of the project according to 21500, and there's a definition of a project according to PMBOK. So these are the two definitions. They're very similar, but they also have their differences as it is. Okay, so there are process groups within each of them. Initiating, planning. PMBOK calls it executing. ISO 21500 calls it implementing. PMBOK calls it monitoring and control. ISO calls it controlling, and both of them have closing. So these are the process groups within 21500 and the PMBOK. Okay, so this is probably the most important slide when it comes to the alignment of these three things. So you can see the subject, 21500 calls them subjects, PMBOK calls them knowledge areas, or PRINCE2 calls them themes. So there's a clear alignment between this, and I've taken the pain so that organizations that use this within Europe and different parts of the world can see the alignment between what they're doing, irrespective of whether they're doing ISO 21500, PMBOK, or PRINCE2. And any of the methodologies can help them to achieve ISO 21500 as an organization or as a department within the business. So the remaining parts in here, I'm not going to overly go into this. So we're going to look at these 10 areas that I talked about earlier, and we're just going to do, there's a comparison for each of them between 21500 and PMBOK. Okay, so for integration, all right, for stakeholder management, so you can see what does 21500 say? Identify stakeholders, manage stakeholders. Okay, PMBOK talks about identify stakeholders, plan stakeholder management, manage stakeholder engagement, control stakeholders. Scope management, define the scope, create. Remember I mentioned that PMBOK and 21500, both of them use what we call the work breakdown structure, while PRINCE2 uses what is called the product breakdown structure. So the scope management, which is very important here, defining the scope, managing the work breakdown structure, defining activities, controlling the scope, and comparison to what we have in PMBOK. Then right, resource management. So on the resource management here, you can see what ISO 21500 is referring to, which is the project team, the resources, and a couple of the other things that are here. Yeah. Okay. So time management. This is also an essential part of ISO 21500. So how you're sequencing activities, estimate activity durations, developing a schedule, controlling the schedule. Okay. Then estimating costs, developing a budget, controlling costs. Okay. All right. Risk. I already had a lot of conversation around risk and how you identify, assess, treat, and control risks. We also talked about that. So once again, if you're already doing PRINCE2 or you're doing PMBOK, it's actually very easy to achieve ISO 21500 from that perspective. Okay, so from a quality perspective, this is completely taken care of on the PMBOK and on the PRINCE2. for you to be able to achieve ISO 21500. Procurement is not greatly discussed under PRINCE2, but adequately discussed under PMBOK. The communication is the final one under this list. So you will see, once again, I'm going to backtrack to this diagram, to this slide. And as I said, it really does allow anybody that wants to achieve ISO 21500 that is already using one of these methodologies to be able to do it effectively. So irrespective of what you're doing, you can use any of these methodologies to achieve ISO 21500. So in conclusion, so we've looked at these three. We've looked at PRINCE2, we've looked at ISO 21500 and PMBOK. As I said, it really does not matter what you use. The most important thing is to be able to deliver a project to objective, to time, to quality, to scope, to budget, to surpass expectations, and to deliver measurable and sustainable benefits to the organization. So that is the most important thing for anybody who is looking to deliver on a project. We're using either of these methodologies. And I've included what I consider to be the 11 qualities of a project manager. A project manager is going to have people management skills, so understanding personality types and being able to adapt accordingly. That's number one. Number two is also being able to understand business strategy. So whether it's balance scorecard, blue ocean strategy, SWOT analysis, person analysis, that's a very important part. The project manager needs to have excellent communication skills. So whether it's speaking, writing, or presentation skills, that's also key. Then excellent negotiation skills, because you have to, as a project manager, you're negotiating scope, change, time. You're literally negotiating everything on the project. And also excellent to use tools like Microsoft Office and Microsoft Project Professional and various other working templates to be able to deliver on projects. The final set of qualities is to be a business analyst. A good project manager needs to be an excellent business analyst. So whether you're doing prototyping, requirements management, and of course having a clear understanding of organizational change imperatives and business realization essentials is very important. Leadership and team management, development skills, coaching, mentoring. A combination of these are three different things. When we say system thinking, critical thinking, and creative thinking, they're three different skill sets, and a project manager needs to have all these three. Finally, a project manager needs to have a domain mastery of expertise and a clear understanding of the methodology for PRINCE2 and PMBOK in itself. So that's it. I've tried to make it quick because it's smack in the afternoon for most people on this webinar. But I hope I've been able to do adequate justice to each of this as it is. So from a PRINCE2 perspective, from a 21500 perspective, ISO, and from the PMBOK perspective. Okay. Right, so that's it.
Thank you very much, Orlando, for this excellent presentation. We have received some questions, which we'll be answering to them now, and the remaining will answer throughout email. The first question is, who is the target audience of ISO 21500?
Okay. Thank you very much for that. It's actually for any organization that is really looking to accredit their business or their department from a project management perspective. So people who bid for construction projects, or people who are trying to demonstrate to external entities that when it comes to project management, that they're following the best practice, and they want to go ahead and accredit their own organization in line with it. So I mean, PECB has the ISO 21500 put from a cost and even from a standard perspective. So sometimes people have external stakeholders that they need to prove to them that they are doing project management. So 21500 accredits the department, not just the individual. It accredits both the department and the organization from a project management perspective, which is very important if your industry is heavily project regulated.
Thank you. The next question, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you good.
Okay, great. The next question is, how big does a project have to be before PRINCE2 can be used?
Well, it can be used for any small or any big project. So people have used it for projects that require 4 or 5 people that are less than $5,000, and people have used it for where the project runs into millions and millions of dollars. The UK government runs everything, and they do literally use it for too. So yeah, it can be used for as big as it is and as small as it can be.
Thank you. The third question is PRINCE2 suitable for non-IT projects?
Oh yes, in fact, a lot of people in construction, especially when it comes to building construction, use PRINCE2 a lot. So it's not tied to a specific domain like IT or construction or manufacturing. It is used across the board.
Thank you. The next question is, what will ISO 21500 enable us to do in the future that we cannot do now?
Well, the truth is, it's really more from an accreditation perspective. ISO 21500 is not different from what you are trying to achieve. Now, 9001 or 27001, it really just proves to everybody that is external to you that you've taken the pain to follow through with the best practice, and you've also accredited your organization in line with the requirements of the standard. So it is the right thing to do for organizations who need to prove, especially to external entities, that they're following through with that. But it also has its own internal benefits. It really just ensures that the projects that you're delivering internally within an organization, they deliver to time and quality and to objective. And obviously saves the organization a lot of money from all their projects.
Thank you again. And the last question for today's webinar is, how useful is it to start with managing projects without any reference?
It's very difficult to manage projects just out of the blues without referring to any kind of methodology. It's really difficult to do that. A lot of people are trying to do that, and then they've crossed from managing projects and it becomes business as usual. So that's a difficult thing to actually achieve as it is. So you're always better off using some kind of reference model or some kind of methodology to be able to do it.
Thank you, Orlando, again for this great webinar, and I want to thank all the attendees as well who have taken time of their busy schedule to participate. I hope and I'm sure you have all learned something new today. This webinar is also recorded and can be found on our YouTube channel, and don't forget to check back on our upcoming webinars on topics of your interest. This can be possible by visiting our website or social media pages, www.pecb.com. Meet you all again same day at the same time on the topic of basics of risk management with ISO 31000. I'm looking forward to seeing you all next week. Until then, have a great week. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.